You've seen why you should use structured data markup. Now you need to know how. In fact, there are several different ways you can code your pages, so you'll need to pick the right method for the right purpose. There are really two different things you need to be aware of: the structured data markup vocabulary and properties, and the coding methods into which you'll embed these properties. So we'll begin at Schema.org, where you can find all the properties used for various different purposes. The Schema.org vocabulary comprises a hierarchy of hundreds of different types or classes, each one designed for a different type of data. Not just objects like products, businesses, books, articles, and so on, but even for actions such as creating things, creating movies, creating photographs, creating drawings, and for moving, arriving, leaving, traveling. Of course, we don't really care about most of these from an SEO perspective. All we care about are the things that the search engines care about: products, events, music, and so on, which I talked about in the previous lesson. So let's take a look at the properties for a product. As you can see, there are various different properties you can use to define the information in your web pages. Now, there's a lot here, scores of different properties, several dozen different things. But again, we don't really care about them all. We only care about the ones the search engines care about. Here, for instance, is Google's information about the product tags. Google explains exactly which properties it reads. So there's the properties, but you have to get the properties into your pages, and there are several ways to do that. First, there's the microdata format, the system we looked at in the previous lesson. Here's an example, again from the Google product page. And this one is the JSON-LD method, which is actually Google's preferred method for some things. I'll get to that in a moment. This method embeds a block of JavaScript into the web page, instead of putting the property names into HTML tags. It's separate from the HTML and the visible text, which has some advantages. And this one is the RDFa format, another system that adds attributes to your HTML tag. So which method should you use? Well, Google prefers JSON-LD, however it doesn't support JSON-LD for everything right now. It supports it for the knowledge graph and site links, which we'll look at in a later lesson, and for events and probably breadcrumbs. Its documentation is contradictory on breadcrumbs right now, but for nothing else, not for products, recipes, and so on. As for Bing, it currently doesn't use JSON-LD, but accepts microdata, RDFa, and something called microformat. You'll notice that Bing also works with Facebook's Open Graph tagging, which is a way to tag a page in order to pass information to Facebook when the page is being pulled into Facebook posts. But that's an advanced subject I won't go into here. So which do you use? Well, for the knowledge graph and site links, you should probably use JSON-LD. These are Google elements anyway, so Bing isn't going to care either way. Both search engines work with events and breadcrumbs, so you might consider using both microdata and JSON-LD for these things, though Google will probably still read the microdata if you choose not to use JSON. And for everything else, you should use microdata, for now at least. What about the microformat coding method that Bing says it uses? Well, Google has in the past said it reads it, but at present it doesn't mention it in the documentation, so I wouldn't use it. Coding structured data markup is an advanced subject with many combinations that I'm not going to describe in detail. There's plenty of specific information on the pages for which I've provided URLs. You'll find all the detail you need there when you're ready to code your pages. There are, however, a few tools that can assist you, which we'll look at in the next lesson.